this topic basically will be trying to understand, right, what is the research process model. Basically there are 8 steps in this model, right? And then identify research problem, and then how do you do your literature search, literature review, and also ethical considerations in research, right? First of all, just imagine that you are undertaking a journey, right? You wanted to travel from point A to point B, right? Before you start your drive, right? Before you go out for a drive, you must decide where you want to go and then which route to take, right? If you know the route, you don't have to consult the map, right? You don't have to consult a GPS or Waze and so on, right? But let's see, if you are not sure of the way, if you are not sure of the route, right, then you need to rely on this maps, GPS, Waze, and so on, right? What if there are more than one route to reach your destination, right? Similarly, right, in the concept, juxtaposing the same concept in your research journey, first and foremost, you have 2 important decisions to make, right? First is what do you want to find out about, or in other words, what we call as research questions, right? And then the second one would be finding the answers, right? Their research methodology. Right, along the way, what you call there's various obstacles, right? You have to understand the rules and regulations. You have to follow certain norms, right, and so on and so forth. Again, the steps, the sequence of the steps are not fixed, right? Sometimes you are required to choose from a multiplicity of methods, procedures, models of research, right? Basically, it is true that the purpose is for you to achieve your research objective, right? So how do you want to achieve your research objective? Here the most crucial part is to understand and get a hold, right? Not to say conquer, to master your research methodology, right? This will navigate you, will ensure you that you are not skewing away from your track, your path to reach your research objective. Both quantitative and qualitative have different sets of research methodologies, right? We'll look into it in different chapters, but for you to just to understand, right, before we move on, right, there are 2 different methodologies specific for quantitative and qualitative, right? Because they are philosophy and also from the aspects of philosophy, methods, models, and procedures themselves, right? Quantitative is more numerical, right? It's more number based, while qualitative, it doesn't press too much importance on numbers. Right, we can break the research process in to 3 different phases, right? Phase A, what we call as designing, the phase for you to decide, right, what you want to answer, right? What are the research questions that you are formulating, right? What do you want to answer? What is the problem that you want to answer, right? Second, the phase B, the planning. How you want to gather the evidence to answer the research question. And finally, the phase C, conducting or collecting your data, right? Your required information. And then of course, writing the report, writing your analysis, and then the final steps of your research, right? So this is basically the research process, right? A simplified version. These are the general 8 steps in the research process model. We'll start with the selection of topic, and then followed by reviewing the literature, development of theoretical and conceptual frameworks, followed by research question or hypothesis, research design, data collection, data analysis, and writing a report. Right? Why this tree is moving in both ways, right? You can always come back to your previous steps, right, to enrich the materials, to enrich your writing, right? Or maybe you found something new in your literature that you want to add in your research question. You want to amend your research question, right? So that you want to address the gaps that in the field of academia, right? So identifying research topic, all right, basically to decide on what you want to do or what you want to research about, right? This is not about identifying a topic. What we call, it does not mean that you have to write out specific topic, and have to target, right? Put it into focus. What is the topic, or what is the issue, what is the problem that you want to explore, right? Formulating a research problem is very crucial in this segment, right, in this step. Right, it's also the most important step, right? By identifying your research problem and also akin to research topic, it will help to tell you and your potential readers, right, the destination or your intention of your research. Mostly the criteria for topic selection comes from your personal interest, right? Whether it's worthy or something that's very niche, right? Maybe you are very particular to medical conditions, for instance, or psychological conditions, for instance, right? These are the important criteria that may be influencing for a researcher to select a topic, right? How do you determine topic relevance, right? Whether the topic is too broad. If it's too broad, then your supervisor or your lecturer would suggest to you to narrow down the topic, right? If you, let's say you want to study about perception of Facebook users. See, Facebook is it's a mass medium, right? There are multiple users. I mean, there's millions of users over there, right? Whose perception are you going to explore? Whose perception are you going to investigate, identify, right? So you can narrow down to reach a concrete focus, right? So that it is not winding up, it's not too broad, so it's not off target, right? And off target, right? So it's also the question of feasibility, right? Whether can the problem really be investigated, right? Is it reachable? Are the sources reachable? Are the materials available? Right? Is it a problem that worth to be analyzed, worth to be investigated, right? Is it a problem manufactured by human conditions, human participation, right? And then comes the question of whether the data can be analyzed, right? Again, the question of feasibility, right? Is it a data that is up to measurement, for instance, like in quantitative studies, right? Whether can be analyzed, right? Is the problem significant? Is it a problem that affects the masses, the mass society, or is it a problem that's need to be solved so that it won't be recurring in the future? All right, is it relevant? Is it important to be studied? All right, if it's not, then why you are spending your time, investing your time in such a lengthy period to answer certain problems that are not significant, that are not worthy enough your time, right? So can the results of the study be generalized, right? Both quantitative and qualitative wants to generalize the outcomes of the study, right? If your study cannot generalize the public's, for instance, if you want to study about media influence, right? If you can't find the right participants to generalize, to formulate a generalization, then it wouldn't be valid, right, for you to discuss the outcomes, the findings of the studies. What cost and time are involved in the analysis, right? Basically, research involves money, right? And also, of course, you have to invest your time, right? Whether it's too costly, whether you need to spend a lot of time and money to travel, right? What if you're a student? As a student, you are burdened by your costs, right? You are some may be self-sustaining, but what about those who are relying on loans, right? Maybe those who are living with parents and so on, right? So you have to plan your budget, right? Or plan according to the cost and time involved, right? Is the planned approach appropriate to the project, right? Or is there any potential harm to the subject, right? These are the questions that you have to ask for yourself before you embark your research journey, right? Second, this is very instrumental, right? Really important. You have to give emphasis on literature review. Why is it so? Because in the topic that you're going to research, basically there are a lot of research that has been done, right? Maybe the methodology is different, right? By going through the previous literature, you may find what are the existing gaps in these literatures, in the previous researches, right? So from there, you would be able to identify the gap. Right? Maybe you find that the methodology that has been used in previous researches are not suitable or need to be updated, or the data that collected is not representing the mass population. Right? Maybe the study has only focused about people in Johor, right? But you want to study about the perception of people in Penang, right? So from literature review, you will be able to construct your objective, your focus, right? What are the steps? So what are the steps involved in literature review? First, you can access to your library collection, right? In your university, your campus, public library, for instance, right? Academic journals, trade publication, archival data, yearbook, clips, declassified documents, old newspaper, etc., all can be used as as part of your literature review, right? If you're studying about poverty in 1957, a post-Merdeka period, right? So where do you rely to for your data, right? You rely to the newspapers published at that point of time, right? You go back to the government census, right? The government data, and so on and so forth, right? From there, you extract your information. And now it's much more convenient, right? Now you have internet, right? You just have to type out the keywords, and then you might retrieve a lot of what you call reading materials, right? Right, reading or analyzing previous researches or information related to your research topic. Why is it? So what, right? So what of so these are some questions that may be addressed, that would be addressed in your literature review. What sort of researches have been conducted in relation to this topic, right? Maybe we take the umbrella topic of media itself, right? Under media, you can study about the effects of media. You can study about the audience, right? Whether the audience are passive or active. How does the media portray an ideology, right? Whether the media is being used by the state, right? Whether the media could can impose certain ideology on masses, right? These are the questions that you would be able to address by conducting a literature review. Right? What was achieved in the previous researches? What was the objective of the previous researchers? Right? From here, you will be able to differentiate your own research. Right? If the previous research was looking into, right, like I said, was looking into the context of Johor Bahru, then you wanted to study about Penang, or you want to study about the youngsters in Penang alone, right? You have different set of targets, different set of objectives. What suggestions have been put forward relevant to your area of researchers? Or how would your research contribute to the field of communication studies, right? What are the suggestions or recommendations stated by the previous researcher, right? What are the limitations faced by the previous researchers? So from there on, you might be able to construct your research topic, right? And you can also identify how your research will contribute to the field of communication studies, right? Whether you're contributing in the terms of strengthening existing theories in relation to communication studies, or you want to fill up the gaps in that argues that media could not influence the masses, right? Or you want to speak about the outreach of social media in the age of digitalization and so on, right? Something like that. Right, and then one of the methods used, right, as I've told you earlier, what is already know the gaps existing in the body of knowledge and right? This is the most important part, right? Because you don't want to repeat what has been said, what has been done, what has been used, right? Maybe you want to use the same samples, right? Maybe you still want to study about people in Johor, but you want to study using a different method, right? Then it might give you different outcome altogether. Right? What are the importance of literature review? One, it helps to refine a topic, right? From being a broad research, it helps to refine the focus for you to concretize your research topic, right? Second, it helps to formulate your research question hypothesis. Initially, you have a topic, but you haven't found a valid or critical research question hypothesis, right? By expanding your reading materials, right, you'll be able to formulate a new research question, an area that has not been explored yet, right? It offers framework, it helps to guide the search, right? You already have existing frameworks, where it has gone, where it is, what are the outcomes by following these steps and so on, right? You already have a pre-existing frameworks, so you will be able to use that frameworks to guide your research as well, right? Tells you what have and not been done in similar topic, right? and tells you how it has been researched, right? What are the methods, right? Research involves basically a systematic, controlled, valid exploration, right? And description of what is not known, and establishment of associations and causations, the accurate prediction of outcomes, right, under a given set of conditions, right? The strength of what you find, right, largely rests on how it was formed, right? Just remember this, right? So development of theoretical and conceptual frameworks, right? As you read your literature, right, as you go through the various literatures, the reading materials, and so on and so forth, right, you should be able to continually developing and refining your theoretical and conceptual frameworks. Okay. What is the role of theoretical and conceptual frameworks? Basically, theoretical framework is your what do you call it, the soul of your research. It is the guidance. It will guide you throughout your research. That would help you to interpret your data in the way that you want to achieve your objective. So theoretical and conceptual framework are really important, right? Your theoretical framework refers to the underlying theoretical approach that you adopt to underpin your study, right? How you want to interpret your data based on certain theories, right? Maybe you want to look into the, right, for example, the influence of medium, right? Maybe the function, the positivism would say that there's an influence, right? The audience are passive, right? They receive the news without contesting the messages disseminated from media. But what about critical theories? Critical theories may argue that audience are not passive, audience are active. They can negotiate, they only receive what they want to receive, right? They adopt what they want to adopt, right? In that fashion, right? No? The conceptual framework defines and organizes the concepts important within your study, right? What are the main concepts that you're looking? What are the main themes that you're looking, right? What do you want to explore, right? These are the things very important. These two is very important, right? Right. Sorry. In developing, as I said, right, in developing theoretical frameworks, your theory is the pulse, right? It's like your soul, the heartbeat to a research, right? You can choose your theoretical framework based on these two criteria: problem statement and second, objective, right? Where do you, as we've seen before, where do you construct your theoretical framework? It's from examining the literatures, right? Information obtained from different books and journals need to be sorted under the main themes and theories. All right? As you start reading the literature, right, you will discover that the problem you wish to investigate has its roots in a number of theories that have been developed from different perspectives, right? And therefore, right, the information obtained from different books and journals now need to be sorted under main themes, right? You will also realize that the literature deals with a number of aspects that have a direct or indirect bearing on your research topic, right? You can use this as a basis for developing your theoretical framework. Right. Why there's a paradox in between theoretical framework and your literature review, right? Why is it so? Basically it's because until when we read this, right, until you go through the literature, you cannot develop a theoretical framework, and until you have developed a theoretical framework, you cannot effectively review the literature. All right, this process happens simultaneously, right? As you read your literature review, you might have a theoretical framework, and then with that theoretical framework, you have to apply it again to see whether it's working or not, right? So therefore, it's kind of paradox, right? You have to complement both at the same time, and it must be must be complementing to both, right? So the solution is, right, try to develop a loose framework and organize the rest of the literature read, right? You have various literatures, right? From there you develop a framework first, and then you go back to your literature and then see where it fits, right? From which literature you can extract what are the important points to your to substantiate, right, to add value to your research. For example, if you want to study the relationship between mortality and fertility, you want to review literatures about, right? For instance, if you want to, you can read about fertility, right? What are the things you want to review in fertility? The trends, the theories, indices, critics of them, factors affecting fertility, methods of controlling fertility, and so on and so forth, right? So in every topic that you're conducting, you must ensure that the major concepts, the literature review regarding the major concepts must be addressed, right? Right. What about developing a conceptual framework, right? It is basically coming from your research problem. Sorry, it's the basis of your research problem. It stems from the theoretical framework and usually focuses on the section or sections, right, which become the basis of your study. Well, the theoretic framework consists of theories or issues in which your study is embedded. Conceptual framework, the aspects you selected from the theoretical framework to become the basis of your inquiry, right? Again, we use the example of fertility, right? There are many theories, right? Fertility theories and blah, 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 right? But out of this, you may want to test only one, right? What are the concepts, right? As we say, what are the concepts? The fear of non-survival, right? Hence, your conceptual framework focuses only on indicators to measure the success or failure of strategy to enhance community responsive, all right? It relates only and specifically to your research work. So this is the importance, or this is how, and this is the role of a conceptual framework, right? It helps for you to narrow down your research topic, right? Research question, right? This is what we call a question that will guide you in the whole process of your research, right? You are basically conducting the entire research to answer this research question. Sorry. Right, for example, right? Are children happier when they watch Malaysian cartoons compared to Japanese cartoons, for instance? What are the barriers preventing homeless adolescents from gaining access to existing healthcare services? Right? These are the different forms of questions that you may want to formulate, right? Initial research questions are chosen, investigated, and often rejected for a number of reasons, right? In the process, you always come up with various research questions, right? You might have a lot of research questions. But ideally, right, when you're embarking your research, you're suggested to have research questions, right? And if you have hypothesis objective, it's advised to have 3 as well, not more than 3 per se, right? So the question lacks sufficient focus, right? These are some reasons why it's legit, right? Right, when it lacks sufficient focus, then it may reject it. You may have to rewrite your research question, right? How do you come up with research question? Right, maybe you have to do more readings, right? The conceptual framework has identified problems in either defining or measuring the appropriate concept, right? Too many moderating or intervening variables, right? Unfeasible in terms of complexity, access, facilities, or resources, right? Some of the problems. Right. Characteristic of a good research question, it has to be feasible, doable, right? Basically, it has to be doable. Make sure it's clear, be significant, worth investigated, right? If you find that, or if your supervisor finds that it's not worthy, right? There's no point of putting so much of efforts, time, and wasting your money, right? There's no point of writing it, right? Again, no point doing research to find out something which has already been many times, right? Do not repeat what has been already established. Hypothesis, hypothesis, right? A prediction of some sort regarding the possible outcomes of studies, or brings clarity, specificity, and focus to research problem. Formal statement regarding the relationship between variables, right? It is basically applicable or highly applicable to quantitative research, right? Right. There's no much emphasis hypothesis in qualitative research, right? But it helps you to, right, predict your outcome, right? Maybe you want to say that the number of the percentage of crime rates increased because there are a lot of urban poor, for instance, right? Or you find that lack of education increase criminal activity, right? This kind of possible outcomes may be predicted with your hypothesis, right? It also brings clarity, specificity, and focus, right? You don't have to pander around. You already know that these are the variables that you're going to research about, right? So that's why it's not very much focused or emphasized in qualitative, because in qualitative you may have different answers from your hypothesis. You won't be able to predict what will be coming out, right? These are the definitions that you can read for yourself, right? I very frequently develop for, so this is supposed to be quantitative, right? Differences between research question and hypothesis. You see there's a difference, right? Well, students who are taught research methodology by women like the subject more than students taught by a man. These are the research questions. Your hypothesis is a statement, right? It says students taught research methodology by women like the subject more than students taught by a man. Right? This is the outcome. It already outlined an outcome for the research. But from your testing, right? You ask your students, right? Who's teaching, right? Whether they would be able to understand the subject when it is taught by a woman lecturer, when it's taught by a woman lecturer or a male, right? And then you find that the woman lecturer, when the subject is taught by a man, is much more influential, right? So your hypothesis is rejected. So that's how it works, right? Similarly, at research design, what data do I need to collect to answer this question? right? You design your entire research before you going into your research, right? What is the best way to collect this? This is for basically for your personal reference, right? That has to be included in the report, but it's more of your personal reference, right? So that you do not miss your targets, right? You don't go off tangent, right? What is the best way to collect this data? What overall research design should I use, right? Cross-sectional, experimental, longitudinal, right? We can correlational, for instance, right? We'll go through that part in later topics, right? Right, will I need to collect primary or secondary data? Right, primary, do you have primary in the sense that do I have to interview, do I have to meet the resource person, or secondary data, or do I uh, from the research that has been done before, and so on and so forth, right? It provides insight about how to conduct, right? How you want to move forward with your research, right? What are the techniques to be implemented? Right? Whether you want to interview, whether you want to conduct through what are the samplings method you want to embark, you want to choose, right? And so on and so forth. In data collection, the primary consideration would be which methodology to use and which methods to utilize, right? Methods will be discussed in detail in later topic, right? So data analysis, of course, it also differs from your methodology. If quantitative, you have different sets of different sets of analysis. In qualitative, you have different sets of analysis, right? The collected data need to be analyzed to provide answers to your research, right? If quantitative, you want to test your objective, you want to test your hypothesis. Qualitative, you want to say you have research question, and then you want to find whether this answers your question or it gives new information to the existing problem, right? Something like that. So in your discussion, you want to identify, you want to elaborate and articulate how do these findings add to this literature. Do they support the literature, right? If not, what are the possible reasons? Writing a research report, right? Conclusion should relate back to the focus research question, whether it is answered, whether it is not answered, what are the weaknesses, how do you evaluate the success of your research in meeting your research objective, right? You can highlight the strengths and weaknesses of the research and recommendation for further research, right? What are lacking and what do you want the future researchers to address in the upcoming researches, right? Ethics is basically, right, even putting into context, like when you are speaking to the elderly people in your family, right, to the elders, right? How do you interact with them? So some kind of ethics, right? So every form of communication, every interaction requires some of ethics, right? So in research, similarly, you have to follow certain ethical consideration. If you are going from a university to conduct an interview, you might have to request for ethical clearance from your campus, right, from your administration, right? With that letter, you would have an authority. You have been authorized by your campus to conduct this interview, right? So that you can write to your respondent, you can write to your spokesperson, right? And then set an appointment, and then you can go and meet the things. So what are the things that you want to ask, right? You may want to explain first what is the research about, explain what do you need, what are the things that you want to explore, what are you expecting out of them, and also what are they expecting from you, right? Whether they don't want to disclose their identity, they don't want you to disclose certain things, and so on and so forth, right? So this is what we call ethics in research, right? Citations, right? This is important, right? If you're following a certain style, then make sure it's consistent throughout your research, right? If you are using APA, then follow APA. If you're using Harvard, try to use Harvard throughout your research, right? But make sure to be consistent, right? Other thing is, of course, the in-text citation, paraphrasing, quoting, right? These are all needed to be explored. And not to say explored, you need to know as a researcher, right? It helps you in writing. Right? Citations, publication, year of publication, right? Try to cite materials that less than 5 years, right? If more than 5 years, it can be considered as outdated, right? A lot of things have been done, might have been done in these 5 years, right? So try to keep it within 5 years. Of course, some things like artifacts, right? The early inventions and so on, something like that, you have to go back to the census, the economic data, and so on. That's not a problem. But research papers, books, and so on, try to be updated. Right, some of the topics that you may want to explore, right? There's some of the topics. Right, for now we don't have tutorial task yet, right? I'll give you the tutorial task in the following week, right? So see you soon. Take care. Thank you.